Dobodura Airfield, New Guinea, November 1943. The air in New Guinea does not act like air. It acts like soup. It is heavy, saturated with 98% humidity, and smells of rotting vegetation, aviation gas, and mildew. It clings to the aluminum skin of the Lockheed P-38 Lightning sitting on the perforated steel planking PSB of the runway. Inside the cockpit of Pudgy, Captain Thomas "Tommy" McGuire, a man who will eventually become the second highest scoring ace in American history, is sweating. He is 23 years old, brash, abrasive, and technically brilliant, but right now he is just hot. The P-38 is an anomaly. In a war of single-engine dogfighters, it is a twin-engine monster. It has twin booms, a central gondola for the pilot, and a nose packed with 4.50 caliber machine guns and a 20 cannon. It doesn't rely on wing-mounted guns that require convergence. It fires a laser beam of lead straight down the center line. It is fast, it climbs like a rocket, but it has a fatal reputation in the Pacific. It cannot turn. The Japanese A6M0, the adversary waiting above the jungle canopy, is a kite made of magnesium and paper. It can turn on a dime. It dances. The P-38, weighing 17,000 pounds fully loaded, lumbers in a turn like a bus. The laws of physics are clear. High wing loading plus heavy weight equals wide turn radius. If a P-38 tries to turn with a zero, the P-38 dies. The zero simply cuts inside the arc and shreds the American plane. Every briefing emphasizes this. Slash and run. Boom and zoom. Never ever turn. But combat is not a briefing room. Combat is chaos. The manual tells you how to fly the plane, but it doesn't tell you how to survive when the manual fails. We are about to uncover the moment a desperate pilot threw out the rulebook and discovered a quirk of physics that changed the war in the Pacific. If you want to keep these forgotten stories alive, smash that like button and subscribe. Now, let's get back to the cockpit. Magguire takes off. The two Allison V1710 liquid-cooled engines scream. These engines are temperamental. They are turbocharged, complex beasts that hate the tropical heat, but they produce 1,475 horsepower each. He climbs to 20,000 feet over the Huon Gulf. He is leading a flight of 4. The sky is a blinding white glare. Bandits 3 o'clock low. Magguire looks down. He sees them. A flight of Zeros, painted in the dark green of the Imperial Japanese Navy, cruising just above the cloud tops at 10,000 feet. They are bait. Magguire noses over, drop tanks. The heavy external fuel tanks tumble away. The P-38s pick up speed. 300 mph, 350, 400. The wind noise builds to a shriek. The plan is standard. Dive, fire, and use the momentum to zoom, climb back up before the Zeros can react. Magguire picks his target, a Zero trailing on the left. He lines up the reflector sight. But the Japanese pilot is an ace. He sees the Lightning diving. He waits. He waits until Magguire is committed to the dive, moving too fast to adjust. At the last second, the Zero flicks into a violent climbing turn to the left. Magguire hauls back on the yoke. The heavy P-38 groans under the G-load. He tries to follow the turn. The hydraulics hiss. The rudders fight the slipstream. He misses. The P-38's momentum carries it past the Zero. Magguire is now slow, at the bottom of his dive, and he has bled his energy trying to pull lead. He looks in his mirror. The Zero pilot has completed his tight turn and is now slotting in perfectly on Magguire's 6. This is the nightmare scenario. The P-38 is low and slow. It cannot out-accelerate the lightweight Zero initially. It definitely cannot out-turn it. Magguire pushes the throttle to the wall. The Allisons roar, but the Zero is firing. Tracers zip past the twin tails. Thump, thump. 7.7 rounds hit the armor plate behind Magguire's seat. Panic is a cold chemical. It floods the brain. McGuire knows the doctrine, dive to the deck, run, but he is already near the deck and the Zero is cutting the corner. McGuire's hands are flying across the cockpit controls. He needs to turn. He needs to turn sharper than the plane is aerodynamically capable of turning. He pushes the yoke left. He stomps on the left rudder. The plane banks, but it's a sluggish, wide arc. The Zero is inside the turn, pulling lead, getting ready to fire the 20 cannons that will blow the P-38's wing off. McGuire screams in frustration. He is fighting the machine. He is fighting the two massive gyroscopes spinning on his wings, the propellers. And then he makes a mistake, or perhaps a desperate experiment born of terror. In a single-engine plane, the throttle controls speed. In a twin-engine plane, the throttles control thrust vectoring, though no one calls it that in 1943. McGuire grabs the throttle levers. They are paired together in his left hand. He doesn't push them both. He yanks the left throttle back to idle. He leaves the right throttle at war emergency power. He has just cut 1,500 horsepower on the inside of the turn, while keeping 1,500 horsepower screaming on the outside of the turn. The result is instant and violent physics. The P-38 is a twin-boom aircraft. The engines are mounted far out on the wings, away from the centerline. This creates a massive moment arm. When the left engine dies and the right engine screams, the thrust creates a chaotic yawing force. The P-38 doesn't just bank, it pivots. It feels like a car handbrake turning on ice. The right engine pushes the right wing forward, while the drag of the dead left propeller pulls the left wing back. The aircraft snaps around its vertical axis. It stands on its wingtip. The G-forces are lateral, throwing McGuire against the side of the cockpit, bruising his ribs. The nose of the P-38 swings around the horizon at a rate that defies the turn and bank indicator. It is not a smooth aerodynamic turn. It is a cartwheel. The Japanese pilot in the Zero is looking through his gun sight. He is tracking a heavy American fighter making a wide, predictable turn. He is calculating lead. Suddenly, the P-38 stops moving forward and swaps ends. It rotates 90 degrees in a split second, presenting its belly, then its nose. The Zero pilot cannot react. His brain expects a curve. McGuire has given him a right angle. The Zero overshoots. It flies right past the nose of the cartwheeling Lightning. McGuire is now pointed at the enemy. He is slow, his aerodynamics are a mess, and he is flying on one engine. But he is alive. He slams the left throttle back forward. The Allison coughs, catches, and roars back to life. The torque equalizes. The P-38 stabilizes. McGuire doesn't fire. He is too stunned. He watches the Zero disappear into a cloud bank, the Japanese pilot likely just as confused as he is. McGuire levels out. He checks his instruments. The engines are running hot. The airframe is creaking. He looks at his hands. They are shaking. He realizes he just broke every rule in the flight manual. He risked a flat spin. He risked snapping the tail booms. But he also turned a bus like a motorcycle. "Did you see that?" his wingman radios. "You almost spun in, Tommy." "No," McGuire whispers, wiping the sweat from his eyes. "I didn't spin, I pivoted." The briefing room at Dobodura is a tin shed with a dirt floor. Major Richard Bong, the leading American ace, is sitting on a crate, cleaning his fingernails with a combat knife. McGuire walks in, still soaked in sweat, looking like a man who has seen a ghost. "The engines," McGuire says, pointing at the diagram of the P-38 on the chalkboard. "They aren't just for speed, they're for steering." The engineering officer, Captain Wallace, looks up from his clipboard. "Captain McGuire, if you use differential throttle in a high-speed turn, you are inviting a VMC roll. You'll flip the plane on its back and go straight into the jungle. The vertical stabilizers aren't big enough to handle that much asymmetric thrust." It didn't flip, McGuire insists. It snapped, it turned square. Wallace shakes his head. It's reckless. The torque on the wing spars is off the charts. But McGuire is obsessed. He spends the next week analyzing the P-38's unique layout. The P-38 has counter-rotating propellers. The left engine spins clockwise. The right engine spins counterclockwise. This was designed by Lockheed engineer Kelly Johnson to eliminate the torque roll on takeoff that killed so many young pilots in single-engine planes. In a normal flight regime, the P-38 is perfectly balanced. But McGuire realizes that this balance is a cage. By breaking the balance, by manipulating the throttles independently, he can unlock maneuverability that the designers tried to engineer out of the plane. He takes Pudgy up for a test flight. He climbs to 15,000 feet, away from prying eyes. He sets up a standard left turn, speed 300 mph. He pulls 3 gs. The turn is wide, lumbering. "Okay," he mutters, "let's break it." He slams the left throttle shut. He keeps the right throttle pinned. Wham! The sensation is violent. The nose jerks left. The tail slides right. The aircraft shudders as the airflow over the left wing separates. It feels like the plane is disintegrating. The slip ball on the turn coordinator slams to the side of the glass. But the nose comes around, fast. McGuire jams the throttle back forward before the speed bleeds off too much. The plane catches itself. He tries it to the right, chops the right engine, powers the left. The P-38 cartwheels right. He learns the nuance. You can't just chop it to idle, you have to finesse it. If you cut it too hard, you spin. If you cut it just enough, you pivot. It requires a dancer's touch on the heavy quadrant levers. He calls it the cloverleaf. He realizes this is the P-38's secret weapon. The Zero turns using its elevators and ailerons, aerodynamic surfaces acting on the air. The P-38 can turn using brute force thrust. It is the 1943 equivalent of thrust vectoring. McGuire starts teaching it, quietly. He grabs the new pilots, the kids fresh from flight school who are terrified of the Zeros. "Listen to me," McGuire tells them, standing under the wing of his plane. "The book says don't turn. The book is right if you fly both engines together, but you have 2 hands. You have 2 engines. Use them." "But sir," a young lieutenant stammers, "the instructor said asymmetric thrust causes spins." "It does," McGuire grins, a predatory look in his eyes. "But if you control the spin, it's not a spin. It's a turn." December 26, 1943, Battle of Cape Gloucester. The sky is filled with Japanese aircraft. Val dive bombers, Betty bombers, and the inevitable swarm of Zeros flying escort. McGuire leads his flight into the furball. It is a chaotic mess. The clouds are low, forcing the fight down to 5,000 feet, Zero territory. A Zero latches onto the tail of McGuire's wingman. The American pilot is screaming on the radio, "Get him off me. I can't shake him." McGuire is too fast. He is booming through the fight at 400 mph. If he tries to turn back to help, his wide radius will take him miles out of the fight. He will be too late. He needs to turn now, instantly. McGuire is doing 380 mph. He is heavy with ammo. He yanks the left throttle back. He stomps the rudder. The P-38 shudders violently. To the observers on the ground, it looks like the plane has exploded or been hit by flak. It tumbles sideways, shedding speed rapidly, pivoting on a dime. The airframe screams, the rivets groan. But the nose swings 180 degrees in seconds. McGuire slams the throttle forward. The engines sync up. He is now facing the opposite direction. Speed bled down to 250 mph, but pointing directly at the Zero chasing his wingman. "Fox 2, he whispers anachronistically, but the sentiment is there. He presses the trigger button on the yoke. The 4.50 cals and the 20 cannon in the nose erupt. The stream of fire is steady, concentrated. There is no convergence to worry about. The bullets strike the Zero's wing root. The Japanese plane shears in half. Fire blooms, a magnesium-white flower in the gray sky. Clear McGuire radios form up. Back at base, the crew chief, Sergeant Kowalski, inspects McGuire's plane. He finds wrinkles in the aluminum skin of the tail booms. He finds stress fractures in the engine mounts. "Major," Kowalski says, wiping grease from his forehead, "you're twisting this bird like a dish rag. The mounts aren't designed for this torque." "Fix it, Ski," McGuire says, lighting a cigarette. "Reinforce them, weld them. I don't care, just make sure they stay on. You keep flying like this, the wings are gonna fall off." "If I don't fly like this," McGuire says, looking at the jungle, "I won't be coming back to worry about the wings." The secret is out. The 475th Fighter Group begins to change its tactics. They stop running. They start turning. And the Japanese pilots, who relied on the certainty of their superior agility, begin to realize that the rules of the game have changed. The clumsy American bus has learned to dance. By 1944, the differential throttle turn has become an unofficial doctrine among the P-38 aces. It is not written in any manual. It is passed down in the Nissen huts and the officers' clubs, drawn on napkins with coffee stains. Chop the inside engine, boot the rudder, ride the stall. It is dangerous. Several new pilots kill themselves trying it. They chop the throttle too abruptly at low speed. The P-38 flips onto its back, and they auger into the jungle canopy before they can recover. It requires a specific feel for the energy state of the aircraft. You have to be fast enough to carry the momentum, but slow enough not to rip the tail off. McGuire masters it. He uses it not just to defend, but to attack. He develops a technique of approaching a fight fast, inducing a cartwheel to slash at a target, then using the P-38's superior power to accelerate away. But the Japanese are adapting too. They are fielding new planes, the Ki-84 Frank, the N-1K George. These planes are faster, tougher, and can dive with the Americans. October 1944, the invasion of the Philippines. McGuire is now the second leading ace, chasing Richard Bong's record. The rivalry is friendly but intense. Bong flies smoothly, using speed and surprise. McGuire flies violently, wrestling the plane, using every trick in the book and several that aren't. Over Tacloban Airfield, the sky is black with flak and fighters. A massive Japanese counterattack is underway. McGuire is leading a sweep. He spots a lone Kai Oscar, a nimble, older fighter flown by a master. McGuire dives. The Oscar pilot sees him, he waits, he brakes hard right. McGuire expects this. He chops his right throttle. The P-38 pivots right, matching the turn. But the Oscar pilot does something unexpected. He pulls up into a vertical spiral. He is using his light weight to climb inside McGuire's turn. McGuire is heavy. He can't climb vertically while turning. He will stall. The Oscar comes over the top. He is now looking down at McGuire. He drops onto the P-38's tail. McGuire is in trouble. He has bled his energy in the turn. He is slow, 180 mph. He has a maneuverable fighter on his 6, and he doesn't have the speed to run. The Oscar opens fire. 12.7 rounds spark off the P-38's left engine nacelle. McGuire realizes he has one card left, a card that relies entirely on the P-38's bizarre aerodynamics. He decides to stop flying. He chops both throttles to idle. He drops the combat flaps. He kicks full rudder. The P-38, essentially a glider with the aerodynamics of a brick, enters a flat skid. It doesn't fly forward. It slides sideways through the air. The Oscar pilot is coming down fast, expecting a moving target. He sees the P-38 suddenly decelerate, and yaw 45 degrees to the slipstream. The Japanese pilot overshoots. He has to pull up violently to avoid a collision. He zooms past Magguire feet away. As soon as the Oscar passes, Magguire slams the throttles forward. This is the danger zone. The P-38's engines are turbocharged. There is a turbo lag. If you slam the throttles, the engines can surge or detonate. Magguire prays to the engineers at Allison. Bang, roar. The engines catch. Flames spit from the exhaust stacks. The propellers bite. Magguire pulls the nose up. The Oscar is in front of him, climbing away, exposing its belly. Magguire fires. The 20 cannon shells tear the Oscar apart. Splash 1, Magguire gasps. He is shaking, that was too close. He lands at Tacloban. His crew chief runs up. Major, the left engine is smoking. Magguire jumps out. The cowling is hot. Oil is dripping. I pushed it too hard, Magguire says. Turbo seal blew. And the rudder, the chief points. Look at the fabric. The fabric covering on the rudder is torn. The stress of the skid ripped it open. Magguire looks at the plane. It is beaten, battered, leaking, but it brought him home. He realizes that the P-38 is not just a machine of metal and gas. It is a partner. It tolerates his abuse. It allows him to break the laws of physics because it has the brute strength to survive the punishment. But there is a limit. Every machine has a breaking point, and every pilot has a number of withdrawals they can make from the luck bank before the account runs dry. January 7, 1945, Los Negros Island. The day the trick fails. Magguire is flying a P-38L, a newer model with hydraulic-boosted ailerons. It rolls faster. It is more powerful. He is chasing a Ki-43 Oscar, flown by Warrant Officer Akira Sugimoto, an instructor pilot. Sugimoto is brilliant. He is low, 200 feet above the jungle. Magguire is heavy. He has full fuel tanks. He hasn't dropped his external tanks because he wants to engage quickly. Sugimoto turns hard. Magguire tries to follow. He is low, he is slow, he is heavy. He reaches for the throttles. He intends to use the differential thrust to tighten the turn, to get the nose on the Oscar one last time. He chops the inside engine. He pulls back on the stick. But this time the physics don't work. He is too low, the air is too thick, the tanks are too heavy. The P-38 enters the snap maneuver, but instead of pivoting level, the heavy wing, laden with fuel, drops. The nose slices through the horizon. The plane shudders. The lift evaporates. This is the VMC roll, velocity minimum control. The asymmetric thrust flips the plane onto its back. At 10,000 feet, Magguire could recover. He could chop the power, neutralize the rudder, and dive out. At 200 feet, there is no room to dive. The P-38 inverts. Magguire, the master of the twin-engine dance, realizes the music has stopped. The plane slams into the jungle canopy inverted. A massive fireball erupts. Thomas Magguire, the man who taught the lightning to dance, dies instantly. The trick that made him untouchable eventually claimed him. He pushed the envelope until the envelope tore. The death of Tommy Magguire sends a shockwave through the Pacific Theater. He was invincible. He was the technician, the man who understood the machine better than the designers. But his legacy is not the crash, it is the tactic. The differential throttle turn becomes a standard, albeit dangerous, tool in the P-38 pilot's arsenal for the remainder of the war. Pilots like Richard Bong, who survives the war only to die in a test flight of a jet, use it sparingly, respecting its lethality. But the concept, using thrust to steer, does not die with the propeller age. Decades later, engineers look back at the P-38. They analyze the flight data. They realize that Magguire was effectively performing thrust vectoring before the technology existed. In the 1990s, the F-22 Raptor is unveiled. It has nozzles on its jet engines that move. They can direct thrust up or down, allowing the plane to turn tighter than aerodynamics alone would allow. It is the high-tech, computerized version of McGuire's hand, slamming the throttle back. The P-38 itself remains a legend. It is remembered as the fork-tailed devil. It is remembered for shooting down Admiral Yamamoto. But the pilots remember it for the cloverleaf. Years after the war, a reunion is held for the 475th Fighter Group. Old men with hearing aids and walking sticks gather to drink and remember. A young historian asks one of the veterans, "What was the P-38 like to fly? Was it hard?" The veteran smiles. He holds his hands out, mimicking the twin throttles. "Son," the veteran says, "it was like wrestling a bear. It wanted to go straight. It wanted to go fast. If you wanted it to turn, you had to make it angry." "How?" "You cut its leg off," the veteran says, making a chopping motion with his left hand. "You killed one engine, and for a few seconds that big, heavy, beautiful bird would spin like a top. It felt like magic. It felt like you were cheating gravity." "Was it planned?" the historian asks. "Did Lockheed design it to do that?" The veteran laughs, a dry, rasping sound. "Hell no. If Lockheed knew we were doing that, they would have grounded us all. It wasn't planned. It was panic. It was a mistake, but it was the smartest mistake we ever made." The veteran looks at a photo of Tommy McGuire on the wall. McGuire is young, confident, leaning against Pudgy. "Tommy found the edge," the veteran says softly. "He showed us that the plane could do more than the manual said. He taught us that in a dogfight the rules don't matter, only the physics matter, and physics doesn't care if you're scared." The legacy of the unplanned trick is this: innovation is rarely a clean process in a laboratory. It is messy. It is born in the cockpit of a P-38 screaming toward the jungle floor at 400 miles per hour, with a zero on its tail and a pilot who refuses to die. It is the realization that a machine is just a collection of forces, and a human can bend those forces in ways the engineers never imagined. The P-38 Lightning was built to go fast, but because of a rookie mistake that became a masterstroke, it learned to turn. And that turn saved thousands of American lives in the skies over the Pacific.